Good.
Good.
Last week I was pretty exhausted and just kind of running up fumes and getting through it. This week I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, feeling good. See some of your
Good.
people rolling in here. Um, Interesting reflection on the conversation yesterday. So
Okay.
I had just doing a freestyle, and I was talking about what does it mean to hold space, right? And I'm gonna ask you the
Mm.
same question, but now I had the people that came into the chat yesterday. One was a barber, and the other was a teacher, an educator.
Okay.
So it wasn't Pilates people, it wasn't fitness people, it was a barber and a gentleman whose name actually I don't even still don't know what his name is because his handle was Teach and Ball, but I still didn't catch his name.
Okay.
Um, so he was like a person who was a friend of a person who was talking. So these guys were talking about holding space in context of a barber shop or in the context of, him as an educator and he has 2 degrees and he runs multiple businesses and he does basketball training with elite athletes and stuff.
Mhm.
And having other black male entrepreneur young guys in the space with their dreads and with their messy hair and stuff, you'd
Mhm.
want to think of them as one thing, and then you hear them talk, and then you see something totally different.
Mhm.
Familiar
Mhm.
story, right?
Yeah. A little bit. A
A
little
little
bit.
bit.
A little bit.
But it's fun. I think that, like for me, to bring them into this space and then to have some white Pilates instructor in Middle America hear us talk shop in a
Mhm.
fun, positive, encouraging way, and you see these guys with just such vision and ambition and stuff. It's not that
Mhm.
I don't know how to. I'm trying to find the words right. It was just refreshing, and I'm glad I
Okay.
gave a platform for that. I'm glad I get to hold some space for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So just been musing on that. So I don't know. I'm just gonna
I
ask you
feel
what it
that.
means for you to hold space first of all, and then I want to hear what kind of stuff you got going on right now.
Um, Holding space for me, number one, involves being quiet. I get lots of practice because both of my children are adults. Um, and it is to allow people to be who they are. And if you have a platform, an authentic platform, then I don't want to censor you. I
Mm-hmm.
want you to show up as who you are, because that's how we create safe, soft places in trust. It is how we tear down the stereotypes.
Yeah.
Um, and it is learning to address our own biases.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
think
We touched on
about,
that yesterday for sure.
yeah, I mean, that's where, I've been having this conversation with so many people. And I was like, you can give all the workouts and advice you want, but until someone decides that it is time for me to own and address my own personal biases. And what I said to someone was the other day is that the first thing, like everything that we talked about, the headline was, well, that comes from white supremacy. Probably, but I'm talking about you.
Yes.
Like,
That,
how did it show up in your house for you? Now we're
mm,
talking about smaller spaces. That is a big space.
that's a very big space.
Yeah, I acknowledge that. We will not disagree about that. But there is some internal work that we have to do for what we have absorbed instead of saying it's your fault. It probably is. but it's not that broad sense. That's not who's going to work on Tasha, And so the
Yeah.
more I address Tasha and what is actually happening with Tasha and what Tasha thinks and what Tasha believes, then Tasha can hold space for people exactly how they are. That's how it
Yes.
starts.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
I really appreciate you joining me today.
Well, I'm first of all, I'm glad to not be working. So I am. I am glad to be here.
Yeah.
Tis the season for everybody to want a piece of Tasha. Um,
Hmm.
and it is a lot of, it's a lot of work, not just professionally, but, both of my children's birthdays, one was October 21st, one was November 12th. Here comes Thanksgiving, Christmas,
Yes.
there's a grandbaby in the mix, and now I can't stop shopping. Plus, of course, you can't wait as a fitness professional. You can't wait to January 1st to get ready.
Hmm.
You know, there's a lot of preparation that goes in that. And this person wants to talk to you about a project in January, and we need 6 meetings to discuss the 1 hour meeting we're going to have. And,
Right.
I still have personal training clients. I have pulled off of teaching for right now,
Hmm.
um, just to be able to take a dang on breath. Honestly, I just need to go,
Yes.
yeah,
Right. That I
yeah.
feel like that fleeting time that we had last year, where it's like, okay, good, we have some time to work on our business instead of in our business. Like we're right back into working in our business. We're just looking for a gap to figure out where is the best place to put my energy in my business.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Agreed. Um, I have just decided to let some things go. Like,
mhm.
honestly, um, I think that COVID put us all at home, and it made us more, oh,
Crazy,
how
Meryl.
crazy, how
Yeah.
crazy. Um, it put us in a space that we were in each other's face all the time.
Yeah.
And undercover wise, it created competition.
Hmm.
And that
Yeah.
competition, it hasn't always been healthy, because now all we've been doing is looking at what the next person was doing. And if you're
Yeah.
doing that, then I want to do that, forgetting that I have to do these 20 things when I go back to real life. And now I'm trying to
Hmm.
be on Vimeo and YouTube and TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook, and I need to post on Twitter. I need videos, I need IG lives, I need to record workouts, I need to do collaborations. And
Just got tired listening to that list.
I mean, it's crazy,
What's up,
because
Leslie?
we feel like we need to be engaged in everything. And the
Hmm.
other thing that I'm seeing is that there are so many people doing all the learning and all the marketing that they're not working.
Hmm. Right.
Good morning, Leslie, that they're spending all their time thinking they need to continually learn something else to be able to
Yes.
step into their thing.
Yes. Or to appear busy.
Yeah. And they're not,
Yes.
you're not doing the work. Why am I not on Instagram 20 hours a day? Because I am working,
Hmm.
and it is, there is some balance, because of course we have to acknowledge that there are people who are now in the fitness and wellness industry who have never really worked with I don't want to say real people, but people in person.
In person. Right.
Yeah. So that transition to realize that we're probably going to be moving into more of a hybrid, but there are
Hmm.
people, you have to eventually go out into the real world. And now people are scrambling because they don't feel they're prepared. So now they have to pay for another certification. They
Mm.
have to pay for, and it's just like,
Do they though? Yeah.
yeah, nobody's getting any work done because they keep trying to attain things instead of believing in who they already are, and giving who they are before any certifications. And I am just as guilty,
Well,
uh,
yes. That okay,
you
so
know,
now even just something you said in there really resonated with me in the sense that I've recognized that I was in that place too, where it's easier to acquire one more certification than actually go out in the real world.
it
That's
is.
basically just a postponing distraction tactic.
It is. And I was talking to someone about, how do you identify yourself as a, LGBTQ inclusive trainer, or a size diverse trainer, or, racially diverse trainer. And here's the thing, because
Mhm.
I started out before social media, I have
Yes.
never, ever, ever in my entire life had to advertise myself as a size diverse trainer ever in life.
Right.
You
Because the
know,
label's new.
yeah, I built a base by building the community where everybody felt welcome. And it's
Yes.
always been that way for me. And so I think that there's a duality that people who work with people in person don't necessarily feel like they have to spend 20 hours on marketing to figure out how to market themselves to the world. I totally understand that
Hmm.
there's a bigger reach online,
Right.
but all the time, for everybody who feels like they have to have the coveted 10,000 followers, let me tell you what happens at 10,000 followers. Absolutely nothing. You
Right.
know, you used to get the little link privilege, but
Hmm.
it is a number. My clients, I'm going to tell you that over half of my personal training clients aren't even on Instagram.
Right.
A lot of them aren't even on Facebook. When I show up,
Hmm.
I'm Tasha. They don't care anything about the hashtags. They don't care anything about, oh, you went. When I go to get certifications, here's their question: what type of torture are you bringing back now? They didn't ask
Yes.
me what it looks like on my resume. Nobody knows
Hmm.
what an NCPT is. You
Hmm.
like, and we've forgotten about people because we're too busy trying to build a resume. And it is crazy. If you're not prepared to work, your resume means nothing.
But the resume kind of ties in with Leslie's saying here. The resume is a resume of popular opinion.
Exactly.
It's not a resume of lived experience.
No, it's not. And so I made a post earlier in the week and I said those lived experiences, being a Black woman in her 40s who's went through all these body changes and trauma in person with all of these injuries from the hood, those are my advantages. Because when I teach people, I am extremely conscious of a woman who tells me she has extreme cramps, and I am conscious of that. For
Yes.
someone who has gained 50 pounds during COVID, to know I have been 130 and 230,
Hmm.
I am conscious of what it feels like to be afraid that you're going to break a bench, you're going to bust a ball, you're going to do um,
Hmm.
all of these things, every part of who we are. Those are our skills. How do we handle people? Anybody can talk on Instagram.
I feel like, well, two things. One, when I spoke at Brink a few weeks 2 weeks ago now, when I was talking about only your how, the very first part of my talk was about how we are uniquely qualified to do what we do.
Dead
And
on.
that unique qualification isn't the fact that I train with Chris Robinson and you train with Kathy Grant.
Right.
The unique qualification is the fact that I went through a divorce. I didn't make my football team. I injured my this and I did this.
Yeah.
There's your successes, your failures, your degrees,
Oh my
your
gosh.
lineage, your offspring, your marriage. So when I have a man come in here and people say, "How do you train men?" and they say, "Well, here's the thing, and you do this, and you technically." No, it's when my male client comes in and says, "I'm having trouble connecting with my 12-year-old daughter," and he talks for 25 minutes about that. And then we go into our workout after that. You hold the space, the life lived, connecting with my kid, whatever it is. Those are the things that make us unique in how we should. And that's the thing that makes us qualified. And those are all those intangibles that we should be leaning into to know that we are qualified to do it instead of hiding behind another certification until we're quote unquote ready to be out there.
Agreed. Agreed. Um, and I think we've just lost the value in that. And I think, I'm not self-righteous, and I'm blessed that there were periods that I was in and then out of, as far as like curated photos all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell anybody, you know why you don't see pictures of me working out? Because I am technically challenged. And when I work out, I want to be in there by myself. I don't
Yes.
need an audience. I don't
Mm-hmm.
care about a clip. I need to
Mm-hmm.
get these squats done so I can get my butt home and get to the next thing. And
To the
and
next thing.
and that's for me. Do I have curated photos? Of course. Of course.
Mm-hmm.
But I find that I feel less pushed, or there's no urgency for me to post anything perfect. And so I do understand that vulnerability is a skill.
Mm.
It is a skill, and I am blessed that it is my skill, that I know how to tell my story. And I'm not telling my
Yes.
story to hear myself talk, because anytime that I am willing to release the part of me that is imperfect,
Hmm.
then I hold that space for someone else to feel like they can stand
Yes.
in their imperfection and say,
Yes.
I can do this. I don't have to be XYZ.
Hmm.
I'm me.
Right.
And that's dope. Like, that's, we don't need another Martin. We need Martin. Like, um core conversations on the weekend. Like, we don't need somebody to do that.
Hmm.
It is owning that individuality, but we have been taught a herd mentality. Like,
Yes.
we follow personalities. We want to
Hmm.
be like this person, everybody be like her. You know what?
Hmm.
Her is probably miserable as hell, and you have no idea.
Right. Right.
So definitely for the individuality, and to get out of this, um like, do you ever think about the silliness of the things that there's beef over? Like, do you know, it wasn't until last year that I knew there was a classic versus contemporary beef. I had no idea. I had no idea.
Yeah.
None. None. Um, so yeah. And that's
We
my
could,
friend.
we could, oh man, we could go. Yeah, yeah, that's this. But you know what though? No, I'm not gonna go there. Let me go back to something you just said instead, because
And Kathy, hey Kathy. So here's why
yes.
my photos look good, is because Kathy showed me which apps I can use it. I used them for about 3 weeks, Kathy. So I'm going back to them. Okay, Mark, go for it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I want to take my sip. You said vulnerability is a skill. Vulnerability is a skill. You didn't say vulnerability is a gift. If it's a skill, it's something we have to practice and we can sharpen. If I'm working out, I can increase my numbers by getting more reps in. The more that we put ourselves out there in an authentic way, the easier it is for us to be vulnerable. And that's mirrored back to us, and people see the authenticity to which with which we carry ourselves.
It is a skill because it's scary.
Yes.
And specifically in an industry where perfection rules,
Yes.
even if it's fake. Um, and vulnerability is one of those things. Again, I came out of the womb like this to a certain extent,
Mm-hmm.
but I was also taught there were two things that my grandmother, oh my gosh, I'm glad. God bless you, Grandma. My grandma passed away 3 years ago. There are two things that my grandma told me. One, my grandmother told me, don't trust women.
Yep.
But my suspicion of people is not just from that, but also growing up in the city. I'm always on, even now.
Mm-hmm.
My grandma also said, always have you a man on the side. So that's to say, to go, I just want to throw that out there, y'all. But
Right.
the suspicion part made it difficult for me to, not just women, and I'm not just saying that,
Mm-hmm.
but to trust people, specifically because when I needed to share something, back in the day, an adult will shut you down. Like,
Yep.
we're not trying to hear that. You need to suck it up. And I mean, it's happened in my
Mm-hmm.
home, and my parents did the best that they could, but also with adults at school, it was like, I knew that there was a penalty for sharing my truth. And that's what I began to hold on to. There was a penalty for saying how I feel. There was always a penalty.
Penalty wise, like in what way? Like they wouldn't validate it, or they'd make you feel bad for sharing it. Like what was the penalty, generally speaking?
All of that. And, anybody, so think about teenage relationships, right?
Yep.
The first person who says, I love you, is taking a risk.
Mm-hmm.
You're
Yep.
taking a risk, And so that whole thing about sharing your story, sure, I have been exploited in the day of Google.
Mm-hmm.
I say something and people have confessed to me Well, I looked that up, and I mean, it's fine, but I know that someone's going to feel some type of way because of what I said, and they may stop talking to me, which has happened. They may
Yeah.
unfollow me, which has happened. They may
Mhm.
choose not to train with me anymore, which has happened. However, I stand on my truth, and you don't have to like it, and you
Yes.
don't have to be here. That
Right.
vulnerability for me is how I open the door to the people who aren't seen and who feel like their voices don't matter. I'm talking
Yes.
to them, you
Right.
know?
Yes.
So yeah, it is a skill. It's a risk.
It is. It is. It makes us fierce.
I I agree. I'm going to tell you the moment that came true for me.
Okay.
And I don't want to go into a lot of detail because I just don't because
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
my son was shot 6 years ago, and I remember sitting in the hospital room that day, hours after it happened, and I went on Facebook before it was on the news, before it was anything, and I remember looking at my sister-in-law and I said, I'm going to own my own story. And she said, well, you can't stop people from talking about you.
Hmm.
No, but now you don't have to wonder because I just told you.
Yes. Compare it to the truth I just gave you.
Yes. So that's when that moment was when I said, I will never, ever, ever allow anybody else to take my story away from me and make it something that it isn't. I will tell you my story before you ever hear it anyplace else.
Hmm.
And that has become so powerful because, again, you didn't have to wonder.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it it has definitely made me fierce because in a moment where I literally thought I was getting ready to die from the stress and the pain, I was able to stand up, and that's how you build resilience.
Right.
So that's where the fierceness comes in at people. Oh, you have so much confidence. And I say, I mean, yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. Because you can't hurt me with my own stuff because I own it.
You own it.
Yeah. And
What's
we
the
can
worst
call
that you
that
can do to
confidence.
me?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the moment.
So, and then the contrast to that is tenderness, right? And I think we kind of touched on that when we're talking about holding space, but then having that sense of compassion because of our lived experience, be able to live that out, right?
It has to be, and when you were referring to Brink, my session was on, is fear your factor? Like, do you use fear to maintain control?
Mm,
Like, that's your whole thing. Are you afraid of being found out? Do you have an inferiority complex? Do you feel like you're struggling with the imposter syndrome, so you show up as hard and gangster in your class
mhm.
and tell people what to do and they can't say anything back because that's the way you feel good about yourself?
Right.
But that that sort of method works well for certain people who have been in the military and in the dance world are like, tell me what to do, I'm not going to talk, I'm not going to do or whatever. But now, as we open doors, which is what we
Yes.
say we want to do,
Right. Yeah.
these are not the people that we're handling. And there is, and I love, a friend of mine that I went to high school with, he said Maya Angelou told him, you have to be tough but tender.
Hmm.
You have to be tough but tender. And if you're not doing something right, and I think it's because you're being non-compliant and you don't understand how the adductors work,
Hmm.
when the truth of the matter is you may have just gotten a call before you got here that someone's sick and it's on your mind. And for
Yes.
us to neglect that people have
Hmm.
real life situations and their whole goal in life is not to do the 100 correctly,
Right.
then we can become their advocates for them to teach themselves, to to
Yes. To
to
listen to themselves,
absolutely to trust themselves
to trust
instead.
themselves.
Yeah, and I would think that that's really why we're teaching. I would
Hmm.
think that's why I teach.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I had this course. Actually, the guys I talked to yesterday, I was talking to them about some different terms when it comes to masculinity, and we touched on those words fierce and tender. And I'm not sure if I told them the quote. I'm gonna drop it now. And it does. You don't necessarily need to hear this as what it means to be a man because you just personified it in such a beautiful way. This guy was talking about being a man. He was speaking with an African, like a warrior tribe, and
Mm-hmm.
he had his chance as a counselor to talk with these guys. He said, "Listen, in America, they say that to be a man, you need to be fierce. But then in America now, there's a trend where they're saying you need to be tender. Which one is it for you? What do you think about that?" And after a long pause, a gentleman, stood up and said, "I don't want to talk about what it means to be." I can't remember what the name of the tribe was. Like to be a good warrior. I'm going to talk about what it means to be a great warrior. When the moment calls for you to be fierce, nobody can mess with you.
Mm-hmm.
When the moment calls for you to be tender, you don't be tender, you be very, very tender.
Mm.
And understanding what is required in each moment is what makes you a great warrior.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was like, that I'm running with that. I am teaching my sons that. That is my blueprint moving forward. Because it just captured all of what you said. Is not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily about how fierce you are or how tender you are. It's knowing when to be which.
Yes. Which is a skill.
Which is a
Exactly.
skill.
Yes. And with kids, I was raised like my mom was like, my word is the law.
Mm-hmm.
Period. That was it.
Full stop.
Yeah, my dad was more of the negotiator, but I also now having a boy and a girl, it was two girls there, that my dad let my mom take the fall for a lot of the discipline because then he could be the good parent.
Yes.
But it didn't always work with me because I felt like when I needed my mom to be tender, she didn't know how to be.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because now that I'm older and I understand her background, tenderness might have been the difference between her surviving or not,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And so the balance, and specifically the other thing that I want to mention based on what you said is that if we strip away the male and female,
Mm-hmm.
then it is about the warrior, because we feel like, oh, a man can't be tender, a man can't be, you know what? And I never thought about how we use these words to describe different genders until I was reading a book last night and she said, you never hear anybody use the word hysterical when they're talking about a man. And I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
oh, oh, and so we've stuck people into all of these roles and
Yes.
there's a fear that if we step into one, we're not the other.
We're not the other, right?
Yeah, when we're both. We're male
Mm-hmm.
and female energies. We can be fierce and tender. I can kick your butt in a class and still love you and still care about you.
Yes.
There's a duality. There's the beaming spiritual sitting on six crystals, Tasha, and then there's the hood. I want to listen to NWA and sit up with my wine bottle, Tasha. There are both sides, and I think when we look at our industry specifically, um, there's no one way. We can
There
be all the
isn't.
we can be all the things.
Right. It's funny, and I'm reading this book called The Five Rings right now, and
Mm.
it's basically like the Art of War, but the Japanese version of the Art of War,
Hmm.
which is a lot smaller, which is fine for me. I don't feel like reading
Yeah.
something this thick right now. But the thing that they got to is that when they talk about a samurai, and he had like this long sword and his short sword, and then he was able to fight and skilled with everything, and then it says do not have a favorite weapon.
Mm.
Do not have a favorite weapon. And instantly I went to my personal training. I can't get people come in here and everyone's gonna be doing burpees today. That's not
Ex-
my, that cannot be my favorite weapon. I need to have many versatile ways of connecting people. I might have to be fierce. I may have to be tender. I may have to pull out this piece of equipment, whatever it is. I can't have a favorite weapon.
oh my gosh, I am about to like jump up and scream. Yeah, that's it. Um, this is why, and I know there's been a lot of static about, online trainers and and this is what I tell people. Yes, I'm saying this from a professional standpoint as a person who has to pay an accountant to pay her taxes as being a personal trainer because she pays all this money for all this stuff. Yes. But the difference between buying a preset workout program is that that workout program was not created with you in mind.
Right.
It can be a marketing, we're talking about volume. If I make a $10 and undercut the personal trainer's rates, I make a $10 program and sell it to 20,000 people who are all eating chicken breast, brown rice, and sweet potatoes, whether it works for their body or not. It's not math, it's not magic, it's mathematics.
Yes.
So if you stop eating 6,000 calories a day, you're going to lose weight. But that's the thing about working with people who believe in their craft, is because we learn how to fight with different weapons.
Yes.
Yes, that, yeah.
That.
And it is, um even if, for my clients, I rarely create programs before people get there for several
Mm-hmm.
reasons.
Yep.
I started doing it because the gym is crowded in January. And one year I had to train people literally in the hallway. Like, it was so crowded.
Right.
And
Yes.
so I started keeping different things in my car. And if our goal is to do a bench press, but there are people literally waiting in line for the bench press, what are we going to do while we're waiting?
Mm-hmm. Right.
That sort of thing. And so learning to maneuver, read energies. If your client didn't sleep well, of course you're not going to have them do 100 burpees. Why would you? But,
Right. Yeah.
you know,
But if that's your only weapon,
if that's your only weapon, the roll up is not the cure for everything, y'all. Pilates is not the cure for everything. It's not. Sorry, but not sorry. but it's not. It's not the correct weapon for everybody all the time.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm running with that line, like not having a favorite weapon, because that's legit.
Yeah. I love
So I
that.
have I think my wife is still in the chat here. I
Hey,
have a
Alex.
I have this t-shirt, and it's like I cut the sleeves off of it. It's like my shirt. I just do everything in, and it's pink. It has a tree on it, and it says, "She inspires me to grow."
Mm.
And it was a talk that I did at a high school many years ago, where they were bringing in a bunch of people to do talks, and they brought someone in to do journaling, and they brought someone in to do stuff on meditation, and someone to do movement and stuff, and they brought me in as a guy to do a workout. And it was a women's conference, a girls conference, and they brought in all these different people. One of my favorite talks to this day. I love this shirt. I love the fact that a colleague of mine had just gathered these women to find strength in themselves.
Hmm.
It was just one of my favorite things, and Alice legit knows that that's like my favorite shirt.
Yeah.
See her healthy.
Yes.
Can you please talk about what you're doing with it? Because I love all that you have going on with this.
See Her Healthy was created out of pain. So several years ago, I had decided, growing up in, again, in a public housing situation, and um, there were things that I wanted to do that I didn't have access to because my parents didn't have money. And it wasn't that my parents were sitting on their butt collecting public assistance. I want you to understand that you can have two working parents, and when they are not being paid what they're worth,
Mm-hmm.
then you can't afford, kind of the same thing that's happening right now in the
Mm-hmm.
world. Um, and I said to my friends, I was getting ready to go to IDEA, and I said, I want to start this nonprofit. Would you give me your spare change? Like, literally, it was called hashtag change for change. I'm going to take everything that I get and I'm going to buy equipment so that I can start going to people who can't afford gym memberships, um, to get them to work out. And it fell through. I was busy. Stuff happened. I did have equipment. Stuff happened. I didn't get to do as much as I wanted to. And in 2018, I lost my grandmother and my aunt both to heart disease. My grandmother had had a series of heart attacks over her lifetime. She had a stroke that eventually put her in a wheelchair. Before she died, she had to have both legs amputated. And I was even though I lived 3 hours away, I was a caregiver. I watched her die. Like, basically, I watched this process. And so I was on this weight loss journey. Everything was great. I was feeling strong again. And my 25th class reunion was on a cruise. I'd never been on a cruise. Life is fantastic. And a week later, I was standing in the kitchen making quinoa and black beans. I will never forget. And my mom called, and she is screaming. My aunt is 49 years old, and she had a heart attack in her sleep and took her out instantly. And for 3 months, Martin, I did not work out. I went to work. I was basically surviving on Starbucks and protein cookies and Bang energy drinks. For 3 months, I gained 13 pounds in 3 months that I have not taken off since. And part of the thing, I also lost my godmother to a heart attack when she was 45. She had a massive heart attack in her sleep. And one of the things that I saw was, when we're talking about disparities, the first thing people want to throw out is race.
Right.
But on this side, there are information disparities. There are economic disparities.
Yes.
And so what do I do, someone who's extremely healthy but doesn't know the risk for heart disease? And because breast cancer gets all the talk, all the space, when people don't understand that heart disease is the number one killer of women.
Right.
And so my thought was, what was it that I could do for women to see the best version of their healthy selves? And how do I help them get there? So See Her Healthy would be the same way as me. On my daughter's door right now, there's a sign that says Dr. Zan. I put it on a sticky note. Why? My daughter wants to be a physical therapist. I'm going to speak to you as if you are already what you want to be. So when I say see her healthy, instead of looking at women as broken and potential clients, what do I have to offer in order to create, whether that's information, where most, if not all of my classes there are scholarship positions, or they are sliding scale, because I never want someone for money to be an issue. I never want someone to feel like where they live is an issue. And ignorance, honestly, ignorance is bliss. If you've never been touched by something like that, then it may not be on the forefront of your mind like it is on mine. So that's where I did the seasonal depression workshop Sunday night. And Martin, this was the disappointment. And it had nothing to do with the numbers or the people who wouldn't come or whatever. It was the number of people who inboxed me their personal stories, but would say they were anything but depressed, because depression has such this
negative stigma.
Yeah. So they would use other words. Like, oh, I think I'm just overwhelmed. I think I'm just tired. And then send me paragraphs. And I'm like, I'm not a doctor, but, and they didn't want to be seen in a group or a workshop that said depression on it.
Right.
Which is why we're suffering.
Right.
It's why we're suffering. My aunt's health got worse. I look back on Facebook. She had been complaining about chest pain for a year. Now, here's the thing, though. Let me put this out there. When you have to work, you have mouths to feed. The reason why, and they say this is the reason why women are more likely to die from heart attacks, because we are more likely to take everybody else's issues and situations and needs before we'll go to the doctor. Please go to the doctor, auntie. I know I got to go to work. I have to do this. I have to do that. And
ignore the signals.
And that's the other thing to really, self-care is not just a hashtag. Like we are leaving here because our needs, my mom wouldn't go to the hospital. The only reason why she went was because my sister, who lives in another state, call the ambulance. My mom was in the hospital with COVID for 11 days
Mm.
because she was too stubborn. I don't want to leave my house. You can't breathe, ma'am. You know, and those type of things. There's a fierceness
Yes.
to give the
Yes.
facts, and there's a tenderness to say, I understand when you
Yes.
have babies and you're afraid
Hmm.
to miss a day from work. And sometimes you can't see the big picture. So I have to talk to you with what you can see.
Yes.
And
Right.
so that's my that's my thing, that there are other projects going on in the background, not just offering workshops. And of
Hmm.
course I'll do Zumba, Pilates, whatever,
Yeah.
but also things like I need to get blood pressure monitors. Every woman, all of my mom and her sisters all have high blood pressure.
Yes.
I don't know if all of my aunt had 5 daughters. I don't know if all of them have high blood pressure, but I will pay it out of my own pocket to make sure they have blood pressure monitors at the house. So if there's an emergency, you don't have to wait
Hmm.
until you go to the doctor. Or if you can even, my daughter asked me last night, when you went to college, did you have to find another primary doctor? I laughed and she was like, what? And I said, so now I didn't have a primary doctor. We didn't
Right.
we, we
Yeah.
didn't have insurance.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So we're so quick to tell someone, why don't you just go to your doctor? First of all, I might not have a doctor. Two, I might not even have insurance. So do we know what the public health center
Hmm.
offers? Do we know who's offering this? It's to be more of a resource because we just assume everybody is like us.
So what you're talking about is a phrase that I'm seeing come up more in like kind of civic stuff as I reach out into that is the term well-being, the catch-all phrase well-being.
Yeah.
So, right, so one corner of well-being is movement. The other areas are blood pressure monitors, education, understanding even education around black people and heart condition, because white people and heart condition stats are totally different than black people heart condition stats. I'm learning that with even diabetes right now, like whatever it is that is out there as a stat was based on white people's studies, which may not reflect my body composition, my um, what's what I'm looking for, the susceptibility that my body has to it. So as
Mm-hmm.
we educate people in those ways, now you have to be an advocate. You're a health advocate. You're a well-being advocate in such a broad term. So I love what you're doing with that and how it's encompassing all these things like seasonal affective disorder. Everyone's like, that's not Pilates. I don't need to sign up for that. Actually, you do. Like,
Yes.
you know,
Yes, that's the whole thing. And so I literally changed. I was sitting in the parking lot at the grocery store this morning and changed my whole bio. And I had
mm,
made fun with Michelle Sims a while ago that I was like, I'm just somebody's holistic homegirl. Like, I want to feel like that I'm the person that you would kick it with on a block,
yes,
except I have a whole different set of tools, right?
yes.
Or when I said I slay biased dragons, which means racial
Hmm.
racial bias isn't the only one I'm coming after. You
Right.
know, food security, like even our one of the things that me and the board decided to do is to we're gonna sponsor a child or maybe more than one from the angel tree. Why? Like how does that tie back to it? Because as a mother, if my kids are taken care of, I'm good,
You're good.
and
Right.
that creates mental space that you are not
Yes.
stressing and worrying about your children. And then what happens to your body when you
Hmm.
stress and worry? Like it all ties into um different things in there. And so I don't have the luxury to label myself as one thing for marketing's sake,
Hmm.
because there is too much from personal experience that I'm saying this way and this way and this way for me to um, go beyond trying to get someone to hire me for a campaign. Um,
So if I'm going to see her healthy, I can't have a favorite weapon.
exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
Love it. When's your next
Yeah.
workshop?
I don't know. So I actually have an online group, a See Her Healthy group, and it's 1,000 women. And, I'll
Ooh,
have conversations. Sometimes I'll
nice.
ask about, you know, pumpkin pie, sweet potato pie, y'all, because sometimes we just need to do something. Everything's not that
Light.
deep. Yeah,
Yeah,
everything's
exactly.
not that deep. And my intention is to the women in that group said weight training, yoga, meditation. Those are things they wanted to learn more about. And um, it may not be workouts and workout pictures. It may be a space for people to actually ask the questions,
Yes.
that they don't understand. Yoga is not demonic. Meditation is not worshiping the devil, and weight training will not make you look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like,
Hmm,
this
hmm.
is the stuff that we think we know,
Right.
but that is not everyday conversation. If you have been trained and the people you trust and believe in to lead you tell you that kind of stuff,
Hmm.
then you may be missing a part of your bigger picture based on somebody else's dogma.
Right. Right. Right.
So yeah, I think that's our next thing.
Amazing. Can you just type in the comment section like just the Facebook group thing if anyone wants to join you there,
Yeah, you know what? If
please?
someone inboxes me,
Hmm.
um, I can send them the link, because the group is sort of, it didn't start out as See Her Healthy.
Okay.
Um, but it started out as something else that I wanted to hold space for women
Hmm.
to feel like they could be well. It was called Mind, Movement, and Me. That's how it started.
Okay. Cool.
Um, to not just focus, everybody's so workout heavy, but like right now, Martin, my body is so stressed and I want to go to the gym, but I know for 3 days I have wanted to go to the gym and work out. My body is not in any type of condition to go in there and try to lift heavy weights, because that is how I herniated a disc last Thanksgiving,
Hmm.
not listening, feeling like I
You need to
gotta
just
do,
go
I
anyways.
got,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
gotta do this, I gotta do this. And no, my day to day is to clean up my personal space. I bought some other things to make where I spend my time. There's a haven, and I love my family, but there are times that Tasha needs to be served in order to be able to serve from them. And what do I've been getting rid of old clothes, things I'm never going to wear. I bought clothes that were not fitness clothes because I had got comfortable just wearing stretchy pants, and I
Hmm.
wouldn't go anywhere that I couldn't wear my workout clothes. Work on balancing my checkbook, which is the first thing that goes south when I'm stressed.
Yes.
And if I feel hydrated at the end of the day or middle of the day, I feel hydrated, I feel well, I feel like my energy is up and my anxiety is down, I will go to the gym. But even if I don't, my first priority is to take care of myself, whatever that means. It might mean take a nap.
Yep.
Yeah, that. So I'm open. That's the evolution of not feeling like I need to post teasers on Tuesday. And I took weeks off of Pilates. I hated it. I was so
You
mad
just
with the industry. I
you
hated it.
just toppled Teaser Tuesday.
Well, and I'm not. So some people find that as fun.
Yeah, it's totally, but
For
not anymore. They could be
yeah,
like, okay, ooh.
yeah,
Yeah,
when it starts to be performative,
that's
then
what I'm getting at. Yeah.
yeah, for me,
Hmm.
I just have other dragons to slay.
Thank you. I can talk to you all day.
I know we're sitting up here. We're gonna have to have a 3 hour special one day. Like, we'll bring
Right?
people in, we'll take a break and come back. So
Yes, yes. So yeah, I got 11 coming in now, or I guess 10 in your time. So I
yeah,
gotta jump off. But
yeah,
so good. I'm gonna repost this. There's so many just like sound bites things that I think more people need to hear. And I just my kind of closing thought is like we're all part of this body. Like if you want to church talk for a second, we're all different parts of the body. Everyone has different functions, all those different things. to see
Mhm.
what you're doing for women, to see her healthy is so awesome. Have the numbers that you have, people signing for things are so amazing. And as much as I have a heart for that, I'm so happy that you're doing it because you're doing it so well and can do it
Mhm.
so much better than I can. And you can connect with people in a way that I couldn't. So I give you this platform. I let you know that I'm cheering for you. I'm available to you in any way possible so that you can do more of it. And I just completely lean on you to do that well because I think that you're doing a great job with it. I'm so excited, so like excited, just excited to see where this is going to go because it's so needed, and you're doing a great job being an advocate for that.
Thank you for that. But that's why we're on the same team, because my job or my skills aren't your job and your skills.
Right.
And when we learn to work more in that space, instead of me feeling like I need to put down what I'm doing because I need to be better at Martin at what he's doing,
Yeah.
it backfires.
Totally backfires.
It backfires. And we best serve people when we all work together.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you again, Tasha. Honestly,
Thank you. Thank you.
yes.
Do y'all celebrate Thanksgiving in Canada?
When you have a wife from Utah, yes.
Yeah. Okay, bet. A bet. Bet. Okay, so my last question for you, pumpkin pie or sweet potato pie?
Neither.
Blasphemy.
I do not like the consistency of it. It's too mushy. Sometimes it's all right, but I'll pass.
I
I'll
hear
probably
you.
pass.
I
Apple
hear
pie.
you. Apple pie. Okay. 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 I'll take that. I'll take that.
All right, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Talk
Okay,
to you
thanks
later.
everybody.